yeticket.com. I'm here with the director of the film LX 2048, Guy Moshe. How you doing, Guy?
Good, yourself?
How you say your name in Hebrew?
Moshe, it's like a cafe, like with an
Moshe?
accent or go, yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool. That's cool. Wait a minute. Am I talking to a clone or am I talking to the actual guy?
I don't know myself sometimes, man. I wish I would be able to do this for myself, Wake up every day like with my happy face.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what your film is about, LX 2048. It's about, well, people cloning themselves. And not only that, they can't come out during the day because the sun is killing people and things like that. And it's also about how we are interacting with each other as humans. Can you tell me how you put this together, this film, this idea?
So, I mean, it came from two different kind of sources of inspiration. I think the first one was just the human aspect of it. I have a family of my own. I got 3 kids. I'm happily married.
Oh,
but I
good.
think
Congratulations.
thank you. A few years ago, I kind of felt around us there was almost like this kind of season of separation. Like I think there's a phase in relationships where people suddenly get a little bit older, and people that have been through this that might be listening right now would be familiar with that kind of place in life where you start reflecting a little bit. You see the kids growing up and you're starting thinking about your own life and about where you are compared to where you want it to be. And I was looking, it was interesting to me to see that it was just kind of happening, even though it was very different people, different situations, different, sides of the relationship at each place. There was a feeling in me that there's some sort of a common thread between all those kind of relationships having difficulties just in my own little circle. And then I couldn't help but feel like it had something to do with the technological revolution that we're all going through day by day now. And the fact that even though we're creating all these tools that are meant to help us communicate better with one another, we're actually gradually isolating ourselves from real physical interaction. And just the same as me and you are having this interview right now,
Right.
we're on surface, it's almost more intimate than normally because we're in each other's houses right now, talking to each other.
Yeah.
But this screen that is between us, this little thing that we all used to do, which is to shake hands and kind of touch each other and be able to be
And talk
kind of
face to face.
each other's presence. Yeah, I mean, I think that the world we live in as kind of is pushing us more and more into that direction. And I'm not even talking about the pandemic that made me look almost prophetic with this film, but that wasn't even the intent. It came from before. And on the other hand, there is such a wealth of infinite theoretical connections we can make through social media and whatnot, which wasn't possible in the past. So now we're all thinking like, hey, if things get a little bit difficult in our own relationship, like there's so much out there that we can meet even on a weekly basis. It didn't used to be the case 30 years ago. So I think both of these things in my mind just connected into this idea of what does it mean to be human in this kind of, evolving universe, basically.
Yeah. And, again, with this pandemic, you seem to be a little bit ahead of yourself with this film because now they are having problems trying to communicate with human beings, with other people. I hear people talking about they have not spoken to their moms or their grandparents in person because of this pandemic. So they're doing it on screen. They're doing it through VR and things like that. You seem to be a little bit ahead of yourself with this film.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, of course, it wasn't the intent. I mean, there's one line in the movie that every time that I see it now, I kind of, almost have a smile, which is, when the scene with the parents, when they're telling the kids that they're about to get a divorce, and he tells him something like maybe with your friends in school, and he goes, we don't go to an actual school, right? And I've always envisioned that to be a moment in the film, but you'd be watching it and you'd be like, wow, can you imagine a world in the future where there's actually, our kids are not even going to go to school? That's what I thought it was going to feel like. But now, of course, all of us parents, I have 2 kids right now studying on Zoom. So it's like, it just twisted itself a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
it
Well,
wasn't the intent.
I know. Now, let's talk about Adam, which is played by James D'Arcy. His character. This guy is, he's trying to be normal. He goes into an empty office because everyone, they work at night. They do things at night because of the sun. He drives in a convertible with a Matt Hazardous suit, but he wants to try to be normal. Explain that character to me, Adam.
For me, the character is in the world that I placed him is basically kind of a relic or like a memory of what we're like today, right? So
Right.
it's like I wanted to have one person in this universe that we're following that it's not even, I don't even think it's a conscious memory, like subconsciously. This is the one thing that I think endears him to us, because God knows he has a lot of flaws and I've created him like that on purpose. But the one thing he has is he has this innate understanding of part of being human is experiencing life in the real world, is experiencing the sunlight, is experiencing pain, all those things that make us who we are. And in a universe that is gradually forgetting that this was ever intended to be part of life, he's kind of like the last person fighting for this type of life experience. Not necessarily successfully and not necessarily being celebrated for it, but rather almost kind of being pressured to get along with the program. So to me, that was a very endearing character to follow, and obviously the easiest entry point to this universe for the audiences today, because I think that they can identify at least with some of the things that he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And also the character Donald, which is played by Delroy Lindo, he seemed to understand it because he dropped out. But, explain more about Donald. Why did he drop out? And then did he fully understand where it was going, life at, in LX
So
2048?
the character of Donald, played by the great Delroy Lindo, I gotta say,
The great Delroy.
I
You
adore the
actually
guy
really
after working with him even more than before, and I was a fan obviously for casting him. I think that what there's a documentary that just came out on Netflix, regardless of what it is, a piece of cinema, whatever. Like it deals with the idea that a lot of the people that have invented the social media that we're consuming today are having second thoughts and even regrets seeing what it has become. But they look into the camera and they genuinely say, we didn't necessarily think when we were doing it, we didn't think about the negative aspect. We only thought about what the positive is going to be. I think of Donald in the same way. I think he has this monologue in the film where he's talking about this all started like so many other technologies in our life today, by the way, from some sort of a military program, right? Like the idea was to do something good for people that got injured in war or whatever. And gradually it is evolved into something completely different. And I think like a lot of inventors out there, a lot of great thinkers, you can sometimes get lost in your own greatness and in your own ability to change the universe around you. But you're still just human yourself. So part of me wanting to kind of create this character is that there's certainly a measure. His regret is a bit different. I don't think he is regretting everything he's done, but he has a sense of reflection to how things spiraled out of control. And at some point, he just decided to move himself out of it and try himself as an individual to go back into a more humane kind of existence. So to me, that's the way I thought about the character. It's very much comparable to these guys that created all this social media and now tell their own kids, don't get on it, like, don't have an account on the things that I've created, So I think that's the interesting kind of paradox there.
Yeah, that's the way I saw that too. And also one more character, Rena, which is played by Anna Brewster. I did not feel sorry for her at all. I didn't. I didn't feel anything for her because she wants things her way, and that's it. and and also she wants things in her own belief system. I mean, why'd you write that character like that?
I felt, I think personally that she's in a lot of ways, she's the most honest and truthful character in the film. And that was
Mm,
important to me. Because even when you look at the other characters in the movie, and especially Adam and Donald, um, they are so kind of intelligent that they sort of like lie to themselves about their own actions, their own belief system, right? So when they talk about their choices, or they try to explain why they've done this or that, or why they're trying to do whatever it is they're after in the moment that we're meeting them, there's always a sense of like, wait a second, man, you're not exactly honest with yourself, right? When Rena speaks, for better or for worse, she's very clear about what it is she wants. And in my book, maybe it's not comfortable, but it's sincere, it's honest, and there's a level of uncomfortable honesty in her. And everything she says, she doesn't lie in the movie, almost at all. Instead of that one scene where she's trying to kind of coerce him to do something she believes is the real thing. But like when we meet her
right.
in her past interactions, she's always telling the truth, the most uncomfortable truth. And I don't know if it's something that she should be celebrated for, but I thought that makes her a different type of character. And I think that when you even see the clone in the end and the way that she imagined him, I don't know if you felt it, but she obviously, there was something about Adam that she did love at some point in the game. Like that was clear to me, that once they were in love, and once she looked at this guy, and there was something about him that made her fall in love with him. And one of the things she resents most of all is the inability to accept his place in the world. Like for her, get over it, you know. And I think that's why I wrote her as a more of a tough kind of you know, hard truth type of character, just because I felt like
Right.
you needed that voice in the story to understand the complexity of Adam versus many personalities that we see in the film, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I understand what you said about her, but I just felt that she still didn't deal with the real world. But you know, this is your third film now. Do you feel your growth as a filmmaker, as a director, writer, in this film from your other two films that you did before?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, very much so. I mean, I'm very proud of every movie I make. I think I have I have a lot of filmmaker friends, like all of us in the industry. I think the way I approach my career, if I can call it that, and the way I approach the filmmaking process is maybe a little bit different, in a sense that, to me, every film that I make is its own thing. I'm not trying to duplicate myself. I'm not trying to, I mean, there's a lot of filmmakers who've achieved great success by kind of taking on a certain style of filmmaking and just keep evolving within that kind of style, within that type of, almost like if it was music, then they decide to play jazz and they stay within jazz. They don't kind of jump
Right.
between different styles. For me, I think of stories that trigger my passion or my interest. They could be based on a true story thing, or like very gritty and dramatic and real. They could be completely fantastical. They could be a social commentary. I don't like to limit myself to just one type of story, but with each one of those stories, when I focus my attention on it, what I'm trying to do is to provoke thought and put something in front of you that, as an audience, maybe you're not going to love my films. I don't think I'm ever going to be the kind of filmmaker that is embraced wall to wall by audiences and critics and the like. But that was never my intent. What I really wanted to be is the kind of filmmaker that I grew up admiring, where you see my film, you have a certain emotion towards it. So you come out of the movie, it makes you think, even if it makes you angry with me, and you think that what I've done is not necessarily what I should have done or whatever, at least I generated some discourse with you on a bit of a higher and deeper level. So in terms of growth, which was your question, I very much hope that I'm growing from a film to film. I'm growing first of all as a human being. I'm becoming, hopefully older and a little more,
That's
a
great.
little more mature and smarter in the way I do things. But at the same time, it's kind of like, I make a film. I have an intent. I look at the film when it's done, and I go, how much did I give myself a grade? Like, how much of your vision were you able to actually execute? Now, we can argue whether my vision for that particular project was the right vision to begin with, but that's something I cannot do anything about. What I can do is look at the result and say, with my second film, for instance, I gave myself a pretty high mark of, that's what I set out to do. Whether people embraced it or understood it or not, I could look at it and I go, yeah, that's pretty much what I was hoping to achieve. With this movie, where I feel the growth a little bit is that I think it's becoming increasingly important to me to have a little bit more of an emotional connection to the journey of the character. And it's something that is slightly more American, I think, in nature than, I was born and raised in Israel. I saw a lot of world cinema growing up. And a lot of the cinema that I was admiring growing up had that kind of distance to it, which was almost like a philosophical examination of a story and the characters within it. It wasn't necessarily about pet the dog, kick the dog, you're a good person, you're a bad person.
Yeah.
I'm not putting Hollywood down at all because I made it my home, but I'm learning kind of more and more. I'm trying to find that golden section where these two different approaches to making films can possibly get to a cross section that is greater than both of them. That's, I think, is my real journey and my real search as a filmmaker.
One last question. Now, when an audience member looks at this film, LX 2048, what do you want them to feel? Do you want them to feel what you started off in the beginning, with your friends getting divorces and the separation of humans? What you want them to feel or to understand after they have seen your film?
I want them to feel that progress is inevitable. We're not going to be able to go back anymore from the world that we've created. But to me, the film has a lot of humor in it. You can tell me if you felt it or not, but I wasn't necessarily, a lot of people called it like a dystopia. I'm like, yeah, but it's satirical. It's not like taking itself entirely seriously throughout. There's a lot of kind of hints in the film where I'm kind of poking fun a little bit and say the joke is on us, including myself. It's not like, between the dance scene, between all sorts of like little moments, him driving the convertible. There's a lot of moments there that were not meant to be viewed or experienced with absolute kind of like seriousness. And it's not because the topics I'm raising are not serious. It's because my approach to it in real life, which is what I hope the audience will take from it, is, look, we're in the midst of a huge technological revolution. We're not going to be able to stop it or necessarily change it, but we should also side by side with it fight to maintain some of our human roots,
Yes.
And in that reflect on our own life on a variety of topics. And that's why there's so many different things in the film that surround Adam, because I was trying to think about, when you try to deal with a question like what it means to be human in today's world, let alone 20, 30 years from now, it cannot just be one thing. It's not, what it means to be human cannot be encompassed to, you can't get out of the house because the sun is too strong. That's one topic. It's global warming. Then you have the technological aspect. Then you have all sorts of things in the advancement of medicine, where we find ourselves getting older and older by way of being able to treat ourselves right now. So we're almost kind of like getting into that place where we're extending the life expectancy maybe beyond what it was supposed to be. How is that going to be in a few years from now? So all these things, for me, the main thing I want people to take out of it is kind of have a moment of reflection about what it means to them to be human, not to me, but rather what it means to you as the audience member. How much of what I'm raising in the film is interesting enough for you to think about? Would you ever consider, cloning your own wife and get a better version of her? Would you ever, you know what I mean? What would you do if you were in that situation? Would you be like Adam? You'd be fighting to wake up in the morning, or would you just go with the flow? Or if I offered you a pill that could make you happy 24/7, would you take it, or would you take the pain but insist on staying a living creature like we are right now. So I think that's what I was going after.
Well, yeah, I saw some of the satire, but also that question about being human. I was asking myself that from looking at your film. Well, Guy, unfortunately, we got to get out of here.
That's okay.
And I really had a great conversation with you.
Thank you for having me.
If you can, I'd love to see your next work. What you got coming next? Anything soon? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I actually, believe it or not, I have 3 different projects in, again, 3 different genres. Couldn't be more different than one another, and any one of the films that I've already made. But hopefully each and every one of them I can make unique in its own way, which is what I was talking about before is my goal. So one is a psychological thriller, my first foray into that kind of genre. There's another one that is an espionage story that is based on a true story, and it deals with a little bit of my roots. As I said before, I was born and raised in Israel. Right. And finally, there's actually another very, very big sci-fi project that I'm working on for months now that wants to be more in this kind of like, less independent in spirit and a little more accessible, let's say, but also has these big questions in it. So these are the 3 things that I'm pushing right now, and each one of them is in a bit of a different place. So it's tough to tell which one will be the next one. Okay,
good. Well, thank you for taking time with me, Al McGee, and thank you for your film, but keep it up. I wish you much success for today and tomorrow.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
This is your entertainment ticket. Latest and greatest movie reviews and interviews.